What if a single moment could shatter your long-held beliefs and redefine your entire existence? The quaint town of Maplewood, nestled somewhere in the heart of the United States, was known for its picturesque landscapes and tight-knit community. But beneath the surface of its idyllic charm lay the struggles and heartaches of its residents, particularly one man, Michael Carter. Michael, a middle-aged father, had once been a beacon of hope and strength in his family. He was the kind of dad who would stay up late helping his daughter, Emma, with her school projects, and spend weekends playing catch in the backyard. That was before the darkness crept into his life, stealing away the laughter and joy he once took for granted. The tragic death of his wife, Sarah, had pulled the rug out from under him, leaving him adrift in a sea of grief and disbelief. As the years passed, the vibrant man who had once embraced life with open arms was reduced to a hollow shell, a mere spectator in his own existence. Emma, only 10 years old, was a bright star in Michael's otherwise bleak world. With sparkling blue eyes that mirrored her mother's, she carried an unyielding spirit that often inspired him to just keep going. Despite the heavy burden of loss that weighed on both their hearts, Emma still found beauty in the small things: a butterfly dancing in the sunlight, the feel of grass beneath her bare feet, the warmth of her father's embrace. Yet, amidst her innocence, there lay a painful truth. She had been battling a rare illness since birth, a condition that left her fragile and vulnerable. Michael often wondered how much longer he could shoulder the weight of their shared grief while trying to be the father Emma needed. The sanctuary of St. Joseph's Chapel stood as the heart of Maplewood, a place where the community gathered to seek solace and strength. Every Sunday, the pews filled with familiar faces, all searching for comfort in the words of Father Thomas Reynolds, a kind and gentle soul who had dedicated his life to serving others. For Michael, Sundays had transformed into a ritual of obligation rather than a source of spiritual rejuvenation. He attended not for himself, but for Emma, who still clung to her belief in the divine. She would squeeze his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his with a strength that belied her frail frame, urging him to join in prayer, to find hope once more. On that fateful Sunday morning, as the congregation filled the chapel, the air was thick with an unspoken anticipation. Father Thomas, with his warm smile and soothing voice, began to speak of miracles, of faith and redemption. But just as the choir began to sing a hymn that echoed the promise of hope, a loud crack reverberated through the church, silencing the room. The grand statue of the Virgin Mary, which had graced the altar for generations, began to fracture, its surface splintering as if the very heavens were tearing apart. Gasps filled the air as people clutched their loved ones, eyes wide with fear and confusion. In that moment, time itself seemed to pause. Michael, who had been lost in his own desolation, felt a flicker of something. Was it fear? Or perhaps curiosity? As the statue crumbled, revealing a hidden wooden box, the atmosphere shifted. The priest, trembling with a mix of awe and trepidation, opened the box to unveil a weathered manuscript and a silver relic. The words on the parchment, written in ancient Latin, spoke of dark times yet promised a path to redemption. The community was torn. Some saw it as a sign from God, while others, like Michael, dismissed it as mere coincidence, an absurdity in a world that had already dealt him too many blows. Yet, as the night fell and the relic began to emit a soft blue glow, inexplicable miracles began to unfold in the town. Emma's health, which had been deteriorating, took a miraculous turn for the better after she touched the relic. For Michael, this was a moment that shattered his skepticism, forcing him to confront a reality he had long denied. The conflict began to brew within him, a storm of emotions that stirred his heart. Could he truly believe again? Could he open his heart to the possibility of miracles when his own life had been a series of relentless struggles? The community erupted in fervor, some rejoicing in renewed faith, while others, including Michael, grappled with the implications of what these miracles could mean for their lives. As the days turned into weeks, Maplewood became a spectacle, drawing attention from scientists, skeptics, and the faithful alike. Michael watched as the town transformed, the miracles breathing new life into its corners. But for him, the real miracle lay not in the extraordinary events unfolding around him but in the quiet moments with Emma, who, with her bright spirit, reminded him of the love they had lost and the hope they could still find. In the midst of this turmoil, Michael was left to wrestle with deep, existential questions that haunted him. Was he ready to embrace the unknown? Could he allow himself to believe in a higher power again after all he had endured? The relic had become a symbol of both hope and fear, illuminating the path forward while also challenging everything he thought he knew about faith, loss, and love. This tension between doubt and belief, between despair and hope, set the stage for a profound journey of transformation. It was a journey that would not only test Michael's resolve but also redefine what it meant to be a father, a believer, and a man seeking redemption in a world that had seemed so unforgiving. As the relic glimmered in the night, Michael found himself standing at the crossroads, with the weight of his past heavy on his shoulders and the promise of the future glimmering faintly ahead. Would he choose to step into the light, or would he remain ensnared in the shadows of his grief? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: the heart of Maplewood would never beat the same again. As the days turned into weeks following the miraculous events at St. Joseph's Chapel, Michael found himself enveloped in a whirlwind of emotion. The relic had become a focal point of hope in Maplewood, drawing crowds that filled the streets with a fervor he had never seen before. But amidst the celebration, his heart remained heavy, burdened by the complexities of what lay ahead. The initial wonder of Emma's improvement was quickly overshadowed by a creeping fear. Michael watched as her fragile health seemed to transform overnight. She was laughing more, running outside to play with the neighborhood children, and even taking part in school activities she had previously been too weak to join. Yet, with each joyful moment came a gnawing anxiety. What would happen if this miracle was fleeting? Would she be snatched away from him again, as Sarah had been? Compounding his worry was the growing scrutiny Michael faced from the townsfolk. Some viewed him as a man touched by grace, a father who had been given a second chance. Others were less forgiving. Among them was Clara Jennings, a longtime friend who had turned into a fierce skeptic of the relic's powers. "Miracles don't happen for free, Michael," she warned him one afternoon at the cafe. "You should be cautious. What if this is all smoke and mirrors, a trick of fate that will leave you with nothing but more heartache?" Her words struck a chord deep within him. Clara had always been a source of strength, yet her skepticism forced him to confront his own doubts. He had always thought of himself as a realist, but now, standing on the precipice of hope, he felt more lost than ever. The fear of losing Emma again was palpable, and he couldn't shake the feeling that embracing this newfound faith could lead to deeper disappointment. Around the same time, Michael found an unexpected ally in Father Thomas, who had become a guiding light amidst the chaos. The priest had spent his life preaching about faith and miracles, and now he was faced with the tangible evidence of them. "Michael, you must embrace this moment," he urged one evening as they walked through the church grounds. "Miracles are not merely about receiving. They're also about the courage to believe in something greater than ourselves. It's a test of faith." But Michael's spirit remained conflicted. He appreciated Father Thomas's encouragement, yet the pressure weighed heavily on him. He felt as though he was being pulled in two directions, one towards blind faith and the other towards the cold reality he had come to know all too well. The town's excitement soon spiraled into a fervor that left little room for dissent. As more miraculous stories emerged, healed illnesses, reconciled relationships, and newfound prosperity, Michael found himself growing increasingly isolated. The excitement that enveloped the community was intoxicating, and he felt like a bystander in a story he was supposed to be a part of. Then came the moment that would force him to confront his deepest fears. One night, as he lay awake pondering the relic's power, a knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Clara. Her face was pale, and her eyes glistened with urgency. "You need to come with me," she insisted, pulling him from the comfort of his solitude. Clara led him to the park, where a gathering of townsfolk had formed. The atmosphere was charged with tension, whispers echoing through the air. In the center stood a young man, Dan, whose family had been struggling financially for years. He was on his knees, sobbing uncontrollably, clutching a crumpled letter. "I thought this was real," he cried, his voice trembling. "They told me I would be healed, my debts would vanish. But nothing has changed." The crowd murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Michael could see the desperation etched on Dan's face, and in that moment he felt a pang of guilt. What if the miracles were selective? What if they were only meant for some and not others? The thought was unsettling, and it stoked the embers of his skepticism into a blazing fire. As the crowd began to disperse, Michael felt a pull towards Dan. He approached him, kneeling beside him, feeling the weight of shared despair. "I'm so sorry," Michael whispered, the words feeling inadequate yet necessary. "I understand. I want to believe too, but I'm scared. Scared that it won't last, that it'll all come crashing down." Dan looked at him, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Then what are we supposed to do? Just sit here and wait for miracles? What about those of us who aren't touched by whatever this is?" Michael's heart sank. He wished he had the answers, that he could offer some form of comfort. Instead, he felt the pull of his own beliefs unraveling before him. The weight of his past, his grief, and his fear of loss threatened to overwhelm him. As he stood up, he felt Clara's hand on his shoulder, grounding him in that moment. "You can't carry everyone's burdens, Michael," she said softly. "You're not responsible for their faith or their healing. You can only be true to yourself." Her words echoed in his mind as he returned home, the night heavy with uncertainty. The conflict within him deepened, and he realized that the real struggle was not just about accepting the miraculous but also about reconciling his own beliefs with the chaos surrounding him. As the weeks continued, Michael's internal battle intensified. He found himself drawn to the relic, watching as it illuminated the lives of others while casting shadows on his own heart. Emma, buoyed by her newfound strength, was blissfully unaware of her father's turmoil, her laughter ringing through the house like a sweet melody. But with each laugh, Michael felt the weight of his expectations grow heavier. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emma turned to him, her bright blue eyes filled with innocence. "Dad, do you think miracles are real?" she asked, her voice soft and curious. Michael hesitated, searching for the right words. "I think miracles can happen, but sometimes they come with a cost," he replied, unsure of how to explain the complexities of faith and fear to a child. Emma frowned slightly, her brow furrowing. "But what if you don't believe in them? What if you can't see them? Does that mean they're not real?" Her question hung in the air, a challenge that made his heart ache. He was her father, and his beliefs shaped her understanding of the world. "No, sweetheart. It doesn't mean they're not real. Sometimes they're just hard to see, and that's okay." But even as he said it, he felt the weight of his own doubt. How could he teach her about hope when he himself was struggling to grasp it? That night, as he lay in bed, Michael's mind raced. The relic had brought his daughter joy, but at what cost to his own soul? He couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing himself in the process. The days of playing catch, of being the dad who made everything right, were slipping away as he grappled with the fear that the same miracle that healed Emma could just as easily abandon them both. In the quiet of the night, he found himself staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his past, the loss of Sarah, and the fear of losing Emma again. The relic, the miracles, the community. It all felt like a facade, something that could shatter at any moment. As he wrestled with these thoughts, Michael knew he had to make a choice. He could either cling to his doubts and allow them to consume him or take a leap of faith, trusting not just in the relic but in the love he had for his daughter. It was a choice that would redefine him, a choice that would either lead him to despair or open the door to hope. With a deep breath, he resolved to confront his fears, to embrace the possibility of healing, not just for Emma but for himself as well. As the dawn broke over Maplewood, he understood that the path ahead would not be easy. But perhaps it was one worth taking, if only to find the strength to believe again in the power of love, miracles, and the unbreakable bond between a father and his daughter. As the weeks unfolded, the atmosphere in Maplewood, once filled with hope and celebration, began to fray at the edges. Michael felt the tension in the air, a palpable shift that mirrored his own growing unease. The miracles that had initially brought the community together now seemed to draw lines between those who had been touched by grace and those who had not. The town's excitement morphed into an undercurrent of resentment, and Michael found himself at the center of it all, a reluctant symbol of faith in a town grappling with its own disbelief. One evening, as he walked home from the cafe, Michael overheard two men arguing on the corner. "It's not fair," one shouted, his voice laced with anger. "Why does Michael get all the luck? His daughter is healed, while my wife is still sick. What kind of God would allow that?" The words struck Michael like a physical blow. The echo of their resentment resonated inside him, amplifying his own fears and insecurities. Was he truly deserving of this miracle, or was he merely a bystander in a cosmic joke? The next day brought an unexpected visitor. Dan, the young man from the park, approached Michael with a determined look in his eyes. "I need your help," he said, his tone serious. "I've been thinking about what you said that night. If miracles aren't guaranteed, then maybe we need to find another way to create change. What if we band together to form a support group for those of us struggling with the fallout of this so-called miracle?" Michael hesitated, unsure if he was the right person for such a task. But Dan's urgency stirred something within him, a flicker of purpose that had been dulled by doubt. "I'm not sure I'm the right person to lead," he replied, his voice wavering. Dan shook his head. "You've been through it. You know what it's like to lose hope and then find it again. That makes you an authority on this, whether you believe it or not." The idea of gathering the disillusioned weighed heavily on Michael. It felt like an admission of failure to acknowledge that the miracles might not be universal. But the thought of helping others who suffered as he once had was equally compelling. As he pondered the proposal, he experienced a moment of clarity. Perhaps leading such a group could help him confront his own fears. Yet the emotional toll was immediate. In his interactions with Dan, Michael found himself spiraling deeper into the darkness he had been trying to navigate. The memories of Sarah's illness and his helplessness flooded back, and he felt himself growing more withdrawn. His physical body reflected his turmoil. Nights were spent tossing and turning, and the bags under his eyes deepened. Emma's laughter, once a balm, became a bittersweet reminder of what he was afraid to lose. As the support group began to take shape, Michael felt the weight of responsibility resting on his shoulders. The first meeting was a fragile affair, with only a handful of participants. They gathered in the basement of the community center, their faces etched with pain and frustration. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken fears and doubts. Michael took a deep breath and shared his story, his voice trembling as he recounted the miracles and the shadows that followed them. "Sometimes," he said, "it feels like the miracles are only for a select few. And that leaves the rest of us wondering why we weren't chosen." His words resonated with the group, igniting a conversation that exposed their vulnerabilities and frustrations. As the weeks passed, the group began to grow, drawing in more people from the town who were grappling with their own challenges. Clara, initially skeptical, attended one evening out of concern for Michael. As she listened to the raw emotions being shared, her perspective shifted. "I didn't understand before," she confessed. "I thought this was all about faith and miracles, but it's also about community and support. You're doing something important here, Michael." Her words brought him a sense of validation, yet they also added another layer of pressure. With each meeting, he felt the weight of expectation growing heavier. The more he helped others confront their pain, the more he was forced to confront his own. The emotional toll was exhausting. Sharing his story repeatedly felt like peeling away layers of a wound that had never fully healed. Then, just when he thought he was beginning to find his footing, the town faced an unexpected crisis. A sudden storm swept through Maplewood, leaving destruction in its wake. Trees were uprooted, homes were damaged, and the community was plunged into chaos. The relic, once a symbol of hope, was now overshadowed by the pressing need for recovery. The townsfolk who had once rallied around Faith were now desperate for tangible assistance. In the aftermath of the storm, Michael felt the strain of leadership intensify. People looked to him not just for emotional support but for practical solutions. The group transformed from a space of shared vulnerability into a hub for organizing recovery efforts. Despite his own turmoil, he found himself coordinating volunteers, distributing supplies, and trying to keep spirits high. But with every act of kindness, he felt himself fraying at the edges. Emma, sensing the shift in her father, became quieter, her laughter replaced by a pensive gaze. Michael noticed the change and felt the pangs of guilt deepen. He was so focused on helping others that he had unintentionally neglected the one person who needed him most. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emma finally spoke up, her voice small and uncertain. "Dad, are you okay? You seem different." Michael's heart ached at her concern. "I'm fine, sweetheart," he lied, forcing a smile. But deep down, he felt anything but. The storm had ripped away more than just trees. It had exposed the cracks in his own resolve. He was losing sight of the very thing he had fought to protect, their bond. The storm had also stirred old resentments among the townsfolk. A faction emerged, blaming Michael for their misfortunes, claiming that his connection to the relic had drawn down a misfortune that had now manifested in the storm's destruction. Clara, once his ally, found herself caught in the crossfire, forced to defend him against her own friends. "You can't blame him for this," she argued passionately. "He's been nothing but a source of strength for all of us." But the criticism stung deeply, and the isolation Michael felt from the community was suffocating. He found himself questioning everything he had built, the support group, the connections he had forged, even his relationship with Emma. In the ensuing chaos, Michael experienced a moment of profound doubt that brought him to his knees. One night, after another exhausting day, he sat alone in the dark, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations and the fear of failure. The memories of Sarah flooded back, shrouding him in despair. What if he was destined to fail again? What if the miracles he had once believed in were nothing more than fleeting illusions? The next morning, he stood outside the community center, ready to face the group, but he felt hollow. He wanted to tell them he was struggling, that he didn't have all the answers. But as he looked at their faces, filled with hope and need, he felt the burden of leadership pull him back. He couldn't let them down. He had to be strong. As the meeting began, Michael felt the weight of the room pressing down on him. He opened with a forced smile, but inside, he was unraveling. The conversations shifted from recovery efforts to deep-seated fears about the future. What happens if we face another storm? What if the miracles dry up? Someone asked, and the room fell silent, the question hanging heavy in the air. In that moment, something shifted within Michael. He realized that the facade he had been maintaining was crumbling, and perhaps it was time to let go of the need to appear strong. "I don't have all the answers," he finally said, his voice breaking. "I'm scared, too. I've been holding on to this idea of miracles, but the truth is, it's hard to believe when reality feels so overwhelming." The admission hung in the air, a shared vulnerability that resonated with everyone present. They weren't just looking for miracles. They were searching for connection, understanding, and a way to navigate the uncertainty together. As the group began to share their own fears and struggles, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. Perhaps this was the real miracle, the power of community and the strength found in shared vulnerability. As the meeting concluded, he caught Clara's eye, and for the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of understanding between them. They were both fighting their own battles, but together they could forge a path forward. Michael realized that this journey was not about finding all the answers. It was about embracing the questions and allowing himself to be vulnerable in the process. As he left the community center, the weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time he felt a glimmer of hope, not in the relic or the miracles, but in the bonds they had formed and the strength they could find in one another. He didn't have to carry the burdens alone. They could face the uncertainties together, united by their shared humanity. In that moment of clarity, Michael understood that the turning point was not about faith in the miraculous, but in the belief that they could weather any storm as long as they stood together. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it, not as a solitary figure, but as part of a community built on resilience, compassion, and the unwavering power of love. The turning point came unexpectedly one evening when the town hall was filled to capacity, the air thick with tension. The storm's aftermath had left the community on edge, and as the mayor called for a town meeting to address the recovery efforts, it became clear that emotions were running high. Michael sat among the crowd, feeling the weight of the collective anxiety pressing down on him. He had been invited to speak, but the thought of addressing the community filled him with dread. As the mayor began outlining the damage and the steps needed for recovery, a woman abruptly stood up, her voice shaking with anger. "We've lost so much. And for what? For a few people to bask in the glow of miracles while the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces." The room erupted into murmurs, and Michael felt the heat of their gazes on him. He knew the woman's words were directed at him, and his heart raced as he grappled with the implications of her accusation. Before he could gather his thoughts, another man chimed in. "Yeah, Michael's daughter is fine, but my wife is still in the hospital. What do we do now? Wait for another miracle." The crowd began to chant, voices rising in a chorus of frustration. "What about us? What about our pain?" Caught in the whirlwind of emotions, Michael stood, his legs feeling like lead. He had always believed that miracles could unite them, but now it seemed they were tearing the community apart. I understand your anger," he stammered, trying to quell the storm of voices. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for my daughter to be healed while others suffered. I'm here to support you, but I don't have all the answers." His admission hung in the air, a vulnerable moment that struck a chord with some, while others remained unconvinced. The woman who had started the uproar stepped forward, her expression fierce. "Then what good are you? You were supposed to be a beacon of hope, but you're just like us, lost and scared." The words hit him like a physical blow, and he felt a wave of shame wash over him. Michael had positioned himself as a leader, someone who could guide them through the darkness, yet here he was, exposed and vulnerable. The emotional impact was staggering. He felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath him, leaving him unmoored. Suddenly, something shifted within him. He remembered the faces of those who had shared their fears in the support group, their pain, their struggles, their longing for understanding. Michael realized that he had been trying to carry the weight of hope alone, and that had blinded him to the very essence of what they needed: connection, honesty, and shared experiences. In that moment, he decided to embrace the chaos rather than resist it. "I may not have all the answers, but I know how it feels to be lost," he said, his voice steadying as he found his footing. "Maybe we can't rely on miracles to save us. Maybe we have to become our own miracles for each other." The room fell silent, the crowd caught off guard by his shift in perspective. For the first time, he saw glimpses of understanding in their eyes. "Let's stop waiting for someone to fix this for us. Let's start working together. We can create a community where we support one another, where we share our burdens and lift each other up." As he spoke, Michael felt a rush of clarity wash over him. The storm had not just taken from them, it had revealed the cracks in their facade, forcing them to confront their vulnerabilities. And in that confrontation lay the seeds for a new beginning. The initial resistance began to fade, replaced by a sense of solidarity. "If we want to rebuild, we need to do it together," he continued, emboldened by their shifting energy. "Let's form teams to help each other, to reach out to those who are still struggling. We can be the miracle we've been waiting for." As he finished speaking, he noticed Clara standing at the back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She stepped forward, a determined look on her face. "I'll help coordinate the recovery efforts," she declared, her voice strong. "We can have teams focused on cleaning up the damage, supporting the families in need, and providing meals for those affected." Inspired by Clara's courage, others began to stand up, volunteering their skills and resources. A sense of hope began to swell in the room, transforming the anger into a collective resolve. Michael felt the energy shift, a wave of relief washing over him as he realized they were no longer alone in their struggles. They had each other, and together they could face the challenges ahead. The emotional impact of that night reverberated through Michael long after the meeting ended. He returned home, feeling lighter yet invigorated by the shared purpose that had emerged from the chaos. He found Emma waiting for him, and as he embraced her, he felt a renewed sense of commitment to his daughter. They would navigate this journey together, and he would ensure that she felt safe and loved amidst the uncertainty. In the days that followed, the community's transformation was palpable. People who had once been divided by resentment now came together in unprecedented ways. They organized cleanup crews, shared meals, and created a network of support that extended beyond the immediate needs of recovery. Michael found himself at the helm of this new movement, not as a solitary figure but as one of many, united in their humanity. With every passing day, they shared their stories, their struggles, and their victories. The support group evolved into a collective of resilience, where each person's experience was valued, and their pain acknowledged. Michael learned to lean on others, to accept help, and to find strength in vulnerability. As the community began to heal, so did Michael. He saw the beauty in their shared efforts, and for the first time, he felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him since Sarah's illness. The pain of loss would always be a part of him, but now it was tempered by the love and support of those around him. Through the storm, they had discovered not just the power of miracles, but the profound strength found in solidarity and compassion. The path ahead would still be fraught with challenges, but Michael now understood that they could weather any storm as long as they stood together. In the end, it wasn't the relic or the miracles that defined them. It was their unwavering commitment to each other, their ability to rise from the ashes and create something beautiful out of their shared pain. Michael looked toward the future with newfound hope, ready to embrace whatever came next, not as a leader alone, but as a member of a community bound by love, resilience, and the courage to face the unknown together. As the days turned into weeks, the community continued to rally around one another, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered. The initial wave of collective effort began to wane, and old wounds resurfaced. Michael felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He knew it was imperative to keep this newfound unity alive. As he prepared for the next town meeting, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing beneath the surface, something that could threaten the fragile bond they had formed. In the days leading up to the meeting, Michael found himself reflecting on his journey. He recalled the moments of despair, the isolation he felt when Sarah was sick, and the way he had struggled to connect with others. Those memories drove him to reach out more, to forge deeper connections with the people around him. He spent evenings at Clara's house, discussing strategies for the recovery efforts, and he found solace in her unwavering resolve. Clara had become a trusted ally, her strength complementing his own vulnerabilities. One evening, while they were poring over plans for the recovery, Clara looked up from the documents, her expression serious. "Michael, we need to talk about the financial implications of this. There are still families who don't know where their next meal is coming from. We can't just rely on volunteers indefinitely." He nodded, feeling a knot form in his stomach. "I know. But we can't ask for too much either. People are already stretched thin." Clara leaned forward, her gaze fierce. "We need to advocate for assistance from outside sources. The town should be eligible for federal aid. If we don't push for it, we might not get another chance." Michael felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. The thought of approaching the government felt daunting. What if they didn't listen? What if the town lost hope? But he pushed those doubts aside, recognizing the strength in Clara's determination. "Let's do it. We'll gather everyone and make our case." This isn't just about the past, it's for our future. As the town meeting approached, the air grew thick with anticipation. Michael gathered his notes, but the words felt heavy and unyielding in his mind. He had to convince everyone that they needed to unite once more to advocate for their needs. But what if the anger returned? What if the community turned on him again? He felt a flicker of doubt creep in. The night of the meeting arrived, and the town hall was packed once again. The atmosphere was electric, a mixture of hope and trepidation. As Michael took the stage, he caught sight of familiar faces. Clara, standing resolute in the front row, the woman who had first challenged him, now listening intently, and the man whose wife was still in the hospital, his expression uncertain but not hostile. "Thank you all for being here," Michael began, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "I know we've faced incredible challenges, but I believe we have the power to turn this around." But before he could elaborate, a voice called out from the back, "What's the plan, Michael? We've done our part. We need more than just words." He felt the pressure mount, and he took a deep breath. "We need to advocate for federal assistance. There are resources available, but we have to come together to make our voices heard." The murmurs grew louder, some expressing skepticism while others nodded in agreement. Clara stood and raised her hand. "We'll need to organize teams to gather data on the damage and the needs of families. This isn't just about Michael, it's about all of us." Her words sparked a renewed energy in the room, and people began to speak up, volunteering their skills and time. Michael felt the tension begin to shift. This wasn't just his burden anymore. They were uniting for a common cause, and it was invigorating. Then, just as the meeting seemed to gain momentum, a figure entered the room, a representative from the local government. Michael felt his heart race. This could be a turning point or a disaster. The representative's presence was unexpected and added a layer of uncertainty to the proceedings. "Excuse me," the representative said, cutting through the chatter. "I've been sent to assess the situation. I need to know what you all want and how we can help." Michael's mind raced. This was the moment they had been preparing for, but he could feel the weight of their expectations. He took a step forward, feeling the eyes of the community upon him. "We need assistance. Our families are hurting, and we must advocate for federal aid to secure resources for recovery." The representative nodded but looked skeptical. "I understand your plight, but you need to be specific. What do you need? How many families are affected?" As Michael began to speak, he felt a sudden surge of anxiety. Would they have the data to back up their claims? Would they be able to present a united front, or would the cracks begin to show again? He glanced at Clara, who gave him an encouraging nod. They presented their case: the number of families affected, the financial burdens, the emotional toll. Each statistic they provided was met with murmurs of agreement. The representative took notes, but Michael sensed the skepticism lingering in the air. "Let me be clear," the representative finally said. "We need to see unity in your efforts. If there's division among you, it will weaken your case. You must present a front that shows resilience and determination." His words settled over the room like a heavy fog, and Michael felt the tension spike once more. What if they weren't united? What if the anger and resentment resurfaced? In that moment of uncertainty, the woman who had challenged him earlier stood up again, her voice unwavering. "We've suffered together, and we've fought for each other. We may not agree on everything, but we need this. If we can work together to face our losses, we can work together to secure our future." Michael felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Her words resonated deeply, echoing the essence of what they had built together. If they could confront their differences, they could strengthen their resolve. As the meeting progressed, Michael saw the dynamics shift. Allies emerged from unexpected corners, and people who had previously been at odds were now united in purpose. Clara and the woman joined forces, organizing volunteers to gather data while Michael focused on crafting a passionate plea for aid. The energy was palpable as they prepared, each contribution adding to the collective strength. Michael felt the doubts begin to dissipate. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. They were all in it together, committed to rising from the ashes. As the meeting came to an end, Michael felt a sense of purpose wash over him. The community's determination ignited a fire within him, and he was ready for the final confrontation. They stood on the precipice of change, knowing that their collective voice could not be ignored. But as they left the town hall, a storm brewed outside, mirroring the intensity of their resolve. The winds howled, and rain began to pour, but Michael felt invigorated. It was a reminder that they could weather any storm, as long as they stood together. In the days that followed, they worked tirelessly to prepare their case, gathering data and testimonials from affected families. Michael found himself reflecting more deeply on his journey, realizing that the pain of the past had shaped him, but it didn't have to define him. He had found strength in vulnerability, and now he was embracing the power of community. But just as they seemed to be gaining momentum, an unexpected setback occurred. The representative's office delayed their hearing, citing bureaucratic red tape. Michael felt his heart sink. He had feared that something like this could happen. The community gathered again, this time in a flurry of frustration. "What do we do now?" someone shouted. "We've put in all this work, and it's for nothing." Michael felt the old familiar sense of dread creep back in. Would the anger return? Would they lose the progress they had made? But then he remembered the power of their unity, the connections they had forged. He stepped forward, feeling the energy shift in the room. "This isn't over. We've come too far to give up now. We will push back. We will rally together and demand what we deserve. If we stand united, they can't ignore us." As he spoke, he saw nods of agreement, the fire rekindled in their eyes. Clara stepped up beside him, her voice resolute. "We will organize a rally. We will make our voices heard, and we will show them that we are not going to be silenced." In that moment, Michael realized something profound. They had become a force to be reckoned with. Their shared struggles had transformed into a powerful bond, propelling them toward a common goal. The rally would be their opportunity to demonstrate their resolve, and he felt an exhilarating rush of determination wash over him. They spent the next few days preparing for the rally, reaching out to community members, gathering signs, and organizing logistics. As the day approached, Michael felt the weight of anticipation build. The support they had garnered was immense, and he could feel the energy buzzing in the air. On the day of the rally, as they gathered outside the town hall, Michael looked around at the sea of faces, families, friends, neighbors, all standing shoulder to shoulder. He felt a swell of pride and gratitude for the community that had come together in the face of adversity. Clara stood beside him, her expression fierce and determined. "This is it, Michael. We're ready." He nodded, feeling the adrenaline coursing through him. As they marched forward, the energy of the crowd surged around Michael like an electrifying current. The rhythmic chanting of their unified voices pulsated through the air, each step resonating with purpose and determination. He felt Clara's presence beside him, her fierce spirit igniting a fire within him that he hadn't realized was dimming. This was the moment they had prepared for, the culmination of their struggles and their hopes. The atmosphere thickened with anticipation as they arrived at the steps of the town hall. The representative from the local government stood at the top, flanked by a few aides, watching the gathering with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Michael's heart raced. This was the confrontation he had dreaded but also needed. "Let's make our voices heard," Clara shouted, her words echoing through the crowd as they cheered in response. Michael stepped forward, feeling the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. "Thank you for joining us today. We stand here as a community, not just to voice our needs but to demand the respect and support we deserve," he declared, his voice stronger than he felt. He scanned the crowd, seeing the faces of families impacted by the crisis, each one a reminder of why they had come together. "We've fought through our pain, and we will not allow our struggles to be overlooked any longer." As he spoke, the representative's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "You need to understand that there are processes in place, and we can't simply grant requests without proper documentation and justification," he interjected, his tone dismissive. Michael's heart sank momentarily, but he recalled Clara's words from their earlier discussions. They had prepared data, testimonials, and a plan. They had come together to show their unity and strength. "We have the data," he proclaimed, feeling a surge of adrenaline. "We have gathered stories from affected families, stories of loss, struggle, and resilience. We are not just statistics. We are real people, and we deserve your attention." He gestured to the side where Clara stood, holding a clipboard filled with their findings, ready to present the evidence. The energy in the crowd shifted, murmurs of agreement rippled through them, and Michael felt the collective power of their voices rising like a tidal wave. But then, one of the aides stepped forward, arms crossed. "Even with data, there's no guarantee you'll receive the assistance you seek. There are many towns in need, and we can't prioritize yours without clear evidence of unity." The tension in the air thickened, and Michael felt a chill run down his spine. This was the moment of greatest conflict, and he realized that the greatest challenge was not just to present their case but to ensure that the cracks of division did not resurface. He needed to unite the community once more, to show that they could overcome their past grievances. "Listen," he shouted, silencing the crowd. "I know we've had our differences. I know that pain and anger have clouded our interactions in the past. But today, we stand together for a common cause. We are not just individuals fighting for our own needs. We are a community fighting for one another." He caught Clara's eye, and she nodded, bolstering his resolve. "If we can share our burdens and rise above our conflicts, then we can show them the strength of our unity. We are stronger together than we are apart." The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound reverberating off the walls of the town hall. Michael felt the energy swell, their collective determination washing over him like a wave. "Let's show them our strength," Clara shouted, and the crowd echoed her sentiment. They began chanting again, but this time it was different. The tone was not just one of desperation, it was a declaration of their resolve. Michael turned back to the representative, who stood visibly unsettled by the display of unity. "We will not be ignored. We will continue to fight for our community until we receive the support we deserve." His voice rang clear, filled with the determination he had nurtured alongside Clara and the community. The representative exchanged glances with his aides, and it was clear the weight of the moment was affecting him. Michael seized the opportunity. "Today is not just about us asking for help. It's about showing that we are a community that refuses to be divided. We will present our case together, and we will demand the respect we deserve." At that moment, Clara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "We have stories to share, real lives impacted by this crisis. We have people who need to be heard, and we will not back down until we have done everything in our power to support one another." The representative shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the crowd that had gathered, all eyes fixed on him, waiting for a response. The faces of children, parents, and elders all bore the marks of struggle, but also the light of hope. Finally, the representative sighed, the tension in the air palpable. "Very well. I will take your concerns back to the office, and I will advocate for your case. But understand that results may take time. You must continue to document your needs and stay organized. Unity is essential." The crowd erupted into applause, a mixture of relief and renewed hope washing over them. They had faced their greatest challenge and emerged victorious, not just in securing a promise of attention but in solidifying their bonds of community. As the crowd began to disperse, Michael felt a sense of accomplishment swell within him. They had turned a moment of doubt into a powerful display of solidarity. Clara approached him, her eyes shining. "You did it, Michael. We did it." He nodded, overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the moment. "We all did it. I couldn't have done this without you, Clara. Your strength has been invaluable." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the town, Michael realized that this was more than just a rally for aid. It was a testament to their resilience, their ability to come together despite their differences and fight for a brighter future. They had faced their fears and emerged stronger, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. The emotional impact of the rally resonated deeply within him, a reminder that their journey was far from over. But as he looked around at his community, he felt a renewed sense of hope. They had weathered the storm together, and in that unity, they had discovered an unbreakable bond that would carry them forward. As the crowd began to disperse, Michael stood at the foot of the steps, watching the faces of his neighbors illuminated by the fading sunlight. The exhilaration of victory was palpable, yet a heavy weight settled in his chest. What had begun as a fight for aid had transformed into something much deeper, a profound sense of community that none of them had fully realized they possessed until this pivotal moment. Clara, her expression a mix of joy and determination, approached him, her presence a grounding force amidst the lingering chaos. "We really did it, didn't we?" she asked, her voice a blend of disbelief and pride. Michael nodded, still processing the magnitude of their collective achievement. "It feels surreal. I never imagined we could turn things around like this." They exchanged a glance that spoke volumes, a connection forged through shared struggles and hopes. It was evident that their unusual friendship had blossomed into a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. Where once there had been uncertainty, now there was a bond strengthened by the fire of activism and the shared dream of a better future for their community. In the days following the rally, the atmosphere in town shifted. The representative from the local government had indeed taken their concerns back to the office, and small changes began to emerge. Meetings were scheduled, community forums opened up, and for the first time in years, there was a sense that the voices of the people mattered. Michael had never felt so alive, so connected to the pulse of his community. Yet, with this newfound energy came the realization of the responsibility that lay ahead. As Michael walked through the town, he often found himself reflecting on their journey, the stumbles, the disagreements, and the moments of despair that had almost derailed their mission. Each step he took was a reminder of how far they had come, but also of the fragility of their unity. He recalled the faces of families who had shared their stories, tales of hardship that had, until now, remained hidden in the shadows. It struck him that the fight was not over. It was merely the beginning of an ongoing struggle for recognition and respect. The lessons he had learned were profound. The importance of listening, of amplifying the voices that had been silenced, and of standing together against adversity. Michael understood now that true empowerment lay not only in securing immediate aid but in fostering a culture of solidarity and inclusion. Clara had also experienced a transformation. The spark that had ignited their movement now radiated from her, infusing her with a sense of purpose that was infectious. She took the lead in organizing community meetings and ensuring that everyone's voice was heard, reinforcing the idea that each person mattered. Michael admired her resilience. She had become a beacon of hope, embodying the very essence of female empowerment. Together, they championed not just the cause of their community, but also the recognition of women's voices in leadership roles that had traditionally been marginalized. As he watched Clara rally the community, Michael recognized the impact their actions were having on those around them. Friends and neighbors who had once felt powerless were now stepping up, sharing their ideas, and taking initiative. The collective spirit ignited hope in the hearts of those who had felt defeated. Michael felt a swell of pride for what they had accomplished together, understanding that their journey had inspired others to embrace their own struggles and rise up for change. Yet, amidst the excitement of progress, there was a lingering fear of failure. Michael often found himself grappling with the weight of expectation, the pressure to sustain the momentum they had built. He knew that setbacks were inevitable, but he also realized that failure was not a destination. It was a lesson to be learned. He would embrace each challenge as an opportunity for growth, for himself and for the community they were nurturing. One evening, as he and Clara sat on the steps of the town hall, they reflected on the day's events, how their voices had echoed in the halls of power, how they had carved out a space for themselves in a system that had long ignored them. "What do you think will happen next?" Clara asked, her eyes glinting with curiosity. Michael took a deep breath, contemplating the path ahead. "I think we have to keep pushing. We need to hold them accountable and keep the conversation going. But most importantly, we need to ensure that this community stays connected." Clara nodded, her expression serious yet hopeful. "And we need to celebrate our achievements, however small. Every step we take is a victory, and we can't forget to lift each other up along the way." Their conversation drifted into the night, filled with laughter and dreams of what could be. In that moment, Michael recognized how far he had come, not just as an activist, but as a person. The fear that once paralyzed him had transformed into a fierce determination to act, to lead with compassion, and to inspire change. As weeks turned into months, the community continued to mobilize. They organized workshops, created support networks, and learned to advocate for themselves effectively. Michael found joy in witnessing the evolution of those around him. Friends who had once been hesitant to speak up were now leading discussions, sharing their stories, and encouraging others to join the fight for justice. The immediate consequences of their actions had rippled throughout the town, creating a culture of inclusivity and empowerment. Michael took pride in knowing that they had not only secured the attention of the local government, but had also ignited a movement that would endure beyond their initial rally. As he stood at the edge of the town hall steps once more, looking out at the vibrant community that had rallied around him, Michael felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had faced their fears, forged new friendships, and emerged as a united front against adversity. In the quiet moments of reflection, he realized that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he was no longer afraid. He had learned to embrace the unknown, to find strength in vulnerability, and to celebrate the power of collective action. With Clara by his side and the community behind him, Michael felt ready to face whatever came next. They had carved a path toward a brighter future, one built on solidarity and resilience. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the town, he knew that this was only the beginning of their story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the town, Michael stood at the edge of the steps of the town hall, feeling the pulse of the community around him. The echoes of the rally still reverberated in his mind, a reminder of the power they had harnessed together. Clara stood beside him, her presence a steadying force, a partner in this journey that had blossomed into something they had both desperately needed. The months that followed had been transformative. The community, once hesitant and fractured, had found its voice, its spirit ignited by the shared experiences of struggle and triumph. Michael watched with pride as neighbors he had known for years became leaders, organizing discussions, sharing their stories, and advocating for change. They were no longer just a group of individuals. They had become a collective, a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of hope, resilience, and determination. Reflecting on their journey, Michael understood that this newfound unity was not merely a response to their immediate needs. It was a radical shift in the way they viewed themselves and each other. Their voices mattered, their struggles were valid, and together they could challenge the status quo. Clara had sparked that fire, and it had spread like wildfire through the town, illuminating paths that had long been obscured by doubt and fear. One afternoon, as they prepared for a community forum, Clara turned to Michael, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Can you believe how far we've come? It's incredible to think about the change we've initiated." Michael smiled, though a flicker of doubt crept into his mind. "It is incredible, but we have to keep this going. We can't let it fizzle out." Clara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "That's the beauty of what we've built. It's not just us anymore. Look around. Everyone is invested. Everyone wants to be a part of this. We've created something sustainable." As the forum unfolded that evening, Michael felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Neighbors engaged in discussions that had once seemed impossible. They debated ideas, challenged each other, and celebrated their achievements. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, hope could flourish. Yet, amidst the celebration, Michael also felt a quiet resolve to remain vigilant. He understood that the journey was far from over. The challenges they faced would continue to evolve, demanding their attention and action. He had learned that change required not just passion but also patience, understanding, and a willingness to adapt. In the weeks that followed, as they tackled issues from housing to education, the community's commitment only deepened. They organized fundraising events, educational workshops, and volunteer days, each initiative reinforcing the bonds they had built. Michael found himself immersed in a rhythm of activism, a dance of collaboration that brought joy even amidst the hard work. One evening, after a particularly successful event, Clara and Michael sat on the steps of the town hall, exhausted but exhilarated. "You know, I never thought I would find this kind of fulfillment," Michael admitted, gazing out at the twinkling lights of the town. "It's like I've finally found my place." Clara smiled, her expression one of understanding. "We've all been searching for that, haven't we? It's about more than just the fight. It's about the connections we've made along the way." Michael nodded, feeling a sense of clarity wash over him. The journey had indeed been as much about personal growth as it had been about community empowerment. He had learned to embrace vulnerability, to recognize the strength in asking for help, and to appreciate the diverse perspectives that each person brought to the table. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Michael's vision for the future began to crystallize. He envisioned a community where everyone felt seen and valued, where differences were celebrated rather than feared. He imagined a place where the lessons learned would be passed down to future generations, a legacy of resilience, hope, and action. One day, as he walked through the town, he noticed a group of children playing in the park, laughter ringing in the air. It struck him how vital it was for them to grow up in a community that encouraged their voices, that empowered them to believe they could make a difference. Michael felt a surge of determination. He wanted to ensure that the work they had started would continue beyond their immediate efforts. In the quiet moments of reflection, Michael realized that the heart of their movement was not just about addressing the needs of their community but also about cultivating a culture of inclusion, where everyone, regardless of age, gender, or background, felt empowered to participate. They had the power to shape the narrative of their town, to rewrite the story of who they were and who they could become. As he and Clara stood together, gazing out at the vibrant life of their community, Michael felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. They had faced their fears, transformed their struggles into strength, and inspired each other to rise up for what was right. They had created a ripple effect that would resonate for years to come. In that moment, he understood that the possibilities were endless. They had opened the door to new conversations, new leaders, and new dreams. The future was bright, filled with promise and potential. Michael felt ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that with Clara by his side and the community behind him, they could face any challenge that lay ahead. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Michael smiled, filled with hope for the future. They had not only forged a path for themselves, but had also illuminated the way for others. Their journey was far from over, but they were no longer alone. Together, they would continue to advocate for change, celebrate their victories, and uplift each other along the way. And as he turned to Clara, he felt a profound sense of purpose surge within him. It was a feeling that would guide him forward, a reminder that they were part of something much greater than themselves. They had the power to inspire transformation, to create a legacy of solidarity and love. In the end, it wasn't just about the victories they achieved or the battles they fought. It was about the connections they forged, the lives they touched, and the hope they ignited in each other. They had learned that change was possible, that community was powerful, and that together they could overcome anything. As the night enveloped the town, Michael whispered a silent promise to himself, to honor the journey they had taken, to nurture the community they had built, and to remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice and equality. They were just beginning, and the future held endless possibilities for those who dared to dream and act together.